We're going to talk about the analysis Toolpak that includes developing an array of descriptive statistics for your data. You can create a histogram, including a chart. The Toolpak has a random number generator. It provides some percentile and ranking information about your data, and it also allows you to do some sampling of your data. So the analysis Toolpak is found on the Data tab when you put it there, and we haven't done that yet. It's an add-in. We're going to go backstage to the options and go to the add-ins area, go to Manage Excel Add-ins, and select the first one. We're going to check that box that says Analysis Toolpak. And when I left-click OK, it's going to be added to the Data tab. Now, this movie isn't about statistics per se. You'll be relieved to find out. But we're going to use the Data Analysis Toolpak to do some statistical analysis on this data. And the data is the median family income by state and in Washington, D.C. So there's 51 data points. And the Analysis Toolpak has a lot of statistical evaluative tools, of which we're going to cover 5. The first one being the Descriptive Statistics. I'm going to select that, left-click OK, and I get a dialog box that first requires me to input a range of the data. I'm going to select the data, including the headers. The data is grouped by columns, not by rows. I do have a label in the first row. I have the ability to output these statistics either in a selected range, which is what I'm going to do on the worksheet. We're not going to put it in a new worksheet, although we could, and we could even put this output in a new workbook. The output that I'm after is the summary statistics. I'm going to left-click OK and acknowledge that, and then format this so it looks a little bit more consistent with the data, which is dollars. Widen that column so we can read it. We get an array of statistics that include the mean, which is the average, the standard error, the median, which is the value in the center of the data, the mode, which is the most common, and in this case it's NA because all of these are discrete values and none of them show up more than once. The standard deviation, the sample variance, the kurtosis and skewness have to do with the shape of the curve that's created when you plot these values. We have the range, which is the difference between the high and the low, or the maximum and minimum value, which are also displayed. We have the sum of all the values, and we have a count of the data points, which includes all of the states, plus Washington, D.C. So using this information, my minimum is $36,850. I'm going to round that down to $35,000, and I'm going to create some bins to build a histogram with in $5,000 increments going to $70,000 because my maximum value is $66,303. So after we construct the bins for the histogram, I'm going to go up and go back to the Data tab, left-click Data Analysis, select the histogram, and left-click OK. And again, we have an input range. I want to select the data points. We have a bin range that we just created. And to slow down just for a second, as a statistical aside, the bins that we created are going to be used to slot the values in between those bin values so that we'll get a total count of the frequency of how many data points show up within each one of those bins. If that didn't make sense, it will in a second. Our bin range and our data range has labels. Our output range, I'm going to select that cell to have the output show up on this worksheet rather than another worksheet or another workbook. Left-clicking OK. We get our bins displayed, and we have the frequency of the data points that are found within those bin ranges. We have a couple other options when we build the histogram, and that is to select a Pareto, a sorted histogram, which gives us a sorted result based on the frequency rather than the bin ranges. We can also add to that a cumulative percentage, left-clicking OK, and we find that the bin between 50 and 55,000 has 13 data points, and that makes up 25% of the data points. And there's yet one more option for histograms, and that is to add a chart. Left-clicking OK, and we have a chart associated with that output. So the data analysis Toolpak also allows you to generate some random numbers. The number of variables has to do with the number of columns. So one column is only one column of numbers. The number of random numbers are the random numbers that you want to generate within each column. And then there are 7 options. The uniform option, and you'll get some other choices or other boxes to fill in depending upon what choice you make here, will give us a random number between the low and the high number that we input here. And it'll uniformly generate random numbers between that range of numbers that we define. The normal choice will generate random numbers around a normal distribution or a normal bell curve once we establish the mean or the average and the standard deviation, which is the distribution around the mean. We have some statistical random numbers that we can generate, the p-value between 0 and 1 for Bernoulli trials. We have a binomial distribution which has a p-value with an associated total number of trials, the p-value being the probability value between 0 and 1 again. The Poisson distribution, which allows you to model a frequency with which a certain outcome occurs over a particular span of time. And there's the pattern distribution, which allows you to establish a distribution within a range of random numbers and then have that series repeat a number of times that you designate. And then lastly, we have a discrete random number generator, which will generate some random numbers in 2 columns that you select, where one column contains the possible outcomes and the other column contains the probability of those outcomes, where those probabilities total to 1. But the one people use the most will be the uniform distribution. We can define the beginning point and the ending point, and the random seed allows us to establish a number where we're going to start, and of course we have the output range that we define, which is going to be here, and we can put it in a new worksheet or a new workbook. Left-clicking OK, we should get one column of 10 random numbers generated between the values of 100 to 1,000. So the calculation begins at 500 and then generates the random numbers accordingly. Another thing we can do with the data analysis Toolpak is to rank our data. Again, I'm going to select the input range of the median family incomes. It's grouped by columns. I did select the label in the first row. I need to define an output range, and I'm going to go over here. I'm sort of running out of room, and then I can left-click OK. And I get a table that ranks all of those values from highest to lowest so that my 30th data point, 66,303, is ranked first, so it's set at 100%. There's nothing that's above this. The second highest value is the 7th data point. It's ranked second, and there's only 2% of the data that's above this, which is only one value, basically. There's 51 data points, but 2% is equal to one data point, basically. So the last thing we can do is take a sample of our data. Or the last thing that we're going to talk about regarding statistics. We can define an input range, which I'm going to select some of the data. There are no labels. We have 2 methods of sampling the data. We can use a periodic method, which we can define every nth selection, which is fine if your data is not sorted. If your data is presented in some uniform way, you probably want to pick the second option, which is just to randomly select choices. The number of samples, I'm going to choose just 3. The output range will be J6. Left-clicking OK. And we randomly selected 3 data points from the selected range. So that's the data analysis Toolpak. The first thing we did was we developed some descriptive statistics on our data, which included the standard sort of statistical measurements that are used to size up data. We then created a histogram, including a histogram chart, after we defined some bin ranges. We used a random number generator where we have 7 different options in how we want to generate random numbers. We did a percentile and ranking of our data points. And lastly, we took a sample of the data.